You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy Im, where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy Im.
Episode 32, Dream Big with Ariane Hunter. Hey there, Brave Girls. I want you to meet Ariane Hunter from the project She Went for Her Dreams, a New York City-based boutique personal branding firm that helps female entrepreneurs amplify their voices in the world. Ariane shares her Brave Girl story of her career path in advertising and marketing and where she is now, owning her own business where she helps other women follow their dreams. I found her personal story compelling and inspiring as she decided to not look for another job when she got laid off. She chose to explore her passion with photography, and then she learned how she loved herself and this creative expression. She also became a career coach to women in transition, which led her to the business that she has today. Working within corporations and with clients privately, she's built a strong reputation in the marketplace as both cheerleader and coach to other women. I love that Ariane considers her mission to catalyze women into positions of power, influence, and leadership in business and beyond. Ariane has created a Dreamers Library that you'll want to check out if you're looking for insights into topics like networking, starting a business, and positioning yourself for success. We talk about the power of speaking to larger audiences to build your personal brand and spread your message. We also talk about the importance of journaling, meditation, yoga, and other modalities for personal growth. We share our favorite authors in the leadership development space to include Carol Dweck, Tara Moore, and Brene Brown. I hope that you remember to dream big as a result of hearing what Ariane Hunter shares on this episode of the Brave Girls podcast. And you'll want to be sure to follow her on Instagram. So enjoy the show. So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy M. Today I have the unique pleasure of having Ariane Hunter all the way from New York City with us. She runs a agency of her own up in New York City. She went for her dreams. And I'm just so excited to have met you through another guest, Ashley Sutton, who I met through another guest, Christine Michelle Carter. And this is sort of the power and the ripple effect of powerful and successful women who know other really amazing women introducing us to each other. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I'm super thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now in the Big Apple and kind of how you got to where you are. I know you have some really marquee clients out there.
Yeah, thank you. So what am I doing out in the world? So as you mentioned, I run a company called Project She Went for Her Dreams. And essentially we're a personal branding and marketing strategy firm. So really what we do, we exist to help women entrepreneurs amplify their voice in the marketplace, right? So, and I can tell you a little bit more about the work around that, but the short story is I did not wake up one morning saying that, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to go into this line of work. It all sort of was a process for me. And I think maybe a lot of your listeners will relate to this story of sort of checking your boxes, right? Especially as we go about our career path and we're very early in our career and we sort of have this idea or a prescription of what we think happiness and success is. And so this is how I started out my career. Excuse me. I studied business when I was in university and in grad school, and I thought business was a very safe career to pursue, right? You couldn't really go wrong there. So that was really essentially why I chose it, but in hindsight, I didn't really give any other career fields much thought, in my mind, it was really just the safe route to go. So as I pursued my education and got out of grad school and landed this cushy job in in marketing and advertising in New York City. I grew up in Long Island, so moving to the city was a big sort of shift for me, as you can imagine, going from the suburbs of Long Island to the big city, right? So in my mind, I had arrived, right? It's
Right.
like I was doing everything that I was meant to do, and until it felt like I wasn't, right? So I was about 2 years into the job and would go home repeatedly, just feeling sort of a void, just sort of a, just an uneasiness in my gut. And, especially as women, we're very sensitive and intuitive. We usually can tell when things are off in our lives, right? So that was the case for me. But at the time, it just felt like a big question mark. It felt like, okay, I sense this uneasiness. Maybe it's the job, but maybe it's something else. I don't know. So there was more questions than answers at the time. So eventually I left that job in, it was on Park Avenue, I remember, and I went to a different advertising firm. And so I set up shop there and was there for another 2 years, and that uneasiness returned, right? And, I always remember this moment, I call it my WTF moment, where I had taken the subway into the office as I normally did. And I got up to my office. It was like the 32nd floor. I remember it very vividly. It was like a crisp fall day. It was like September. It was a beautiful day out. And I got to my office and I went over to the window in my office and I looked down. And I looked down and I saw just hordes of people making their way to their office, right? And in my mind, I thought, wow, I was one of them. Just a moment ago, I was part of that crowd, just as I'd done the day before and the day before that. And I said, wow, this is it. This is my life. This is it, and that it didn't sit right with me, and that sort of opened up more questions for me of like, okay, this doesn't feel like it for me. So if this isn't it, what is, right? So I wish that I can tell you at that point, I, quit my job and started a company and I did all these wonderful, magical things. But in honesty, that wasn't my reality. And I was scared, I did think about leaving my full-time job to explore what else the world had to offer me. But I got pretty used to that cushy 2-week paycheck, every 2 weeks of getting a paycheck in my account. That created sort of a comfort for me. I had a certain lifestyle. I had a car. I had I had my own apartment, like all the things, right? So suddenly those things became threatened. It's like, if I leave this job, I know I'm not happy here, but if I leave here, am I going to lose it? Am I going to lose everything that I work towards? So, hindsight is 20/20. And I believe that, when you are supposed to go in a certain direction and you're not making that choice on your own to do it, because we always have a choice, right? But if you're not making that choice to do it, life intervenes and the universe nudges you just a little bit. Sometimes it's a big nudge, but either way, you get nudged in a direction that you're supposed to go. So for me, that nudge was being laid off. Right. So I wouldn't have quit the job on my own. I don't think I would have, it wasn't in me at the time and I was really scared. So life made that choice for me, So at that point when I got laid off, I decided I said, well, I could either get another job, I was marketable, I had the qualifications, it would be easy for me to do that, or I could pursue my passions, or I could pursue the things that were really lighting me up at the time, which was actually photography, Mm-hmm. So I chose the latter. I chose to pursue my passions. I chose to explore and experience. And, I realized that, that was a gift. I was really fortunate to be able to do that. And I know that, from doing this work with women, just like how, in that space that I was, it's not always an option to leave your job, So in hindsight, I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. And it led me down a path to where I am today. And that's sort of the short version of the story. But essentially, I had to relearn myself, like I thought I knew who I was as a business professional, but there was this whole other side to me, a creative side to me that I hadn't even known, right? So had I not ventured out on my own and really sort of thrown myself into the unknown, I would not have gotten to know myself and my strengths, my capabilities, and my capacity to pursue my potential in a way that, I just couldn't if I stayed in corporate. So yeah, I'm forever grateful for that.
Now, how long ago was that?
That was 7 years, going on 8 years. I made that leap. Yeah. And never looked back.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And so now let's talk a little bit about the personal branding work that you do with women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I had the photography background, and when I sort of, let me back up a little bit. I decided after I left corporate, about a few years later, I pursued a career in coaching. Okay, I got trained as a certified coach. And shortly after that period, I started taking on work doing career coaching, right?
Yep.
So 99% of my clientele was working with women who were at a career crossroads, the same as I was. So I was helping them to navigate that path, right?
Yep.
And so through career coaching, there was a sort of a repeated theme that I would often hear my clients bring up in our sessions. And this was the idea of being bold, standing out, having our voices heard, right? So whether you're in an interview, right, and speaking up confidently, if you're doing a presentation or talking publicly somehow, what are the things that you want to most confidently talk about? How do you position yourself to have a distinct voice in the marketplace in which you have sort of an impact, so this can be applied whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're working within a company, right?
Yes.
And so this was not new to me, so I knew sort of this, this idea of the importance of branding yourself uniquely such that you can stand out, whether you're getting, wanting to get hired for a job or you're starting a business, and in my work in corporate, I was actually in marketing. So this was not unfamiliar territory for me. And then the pieces just started to connect, as I said, I had my career in photography as well. And that's an element of branding, visual identity,
Yes.
So it was all of these links that started to sort of connect, in a way that I, sort of tailored my work towards personal branding for entrepreneurs who wanted to make a bigger impact in the world. So there's a lot of overlap in terms of the conversations that I have with my clients between like their career, their mission and vision, right? The impact that they want to make and their strengths and passions inventory. So these are sort of the conversations that I have with them in order to create a positioning and a package for them such that, they are being consistent across all brand channels. Does that make sense?
It totally does.
Yeah.
It totally does. Yeah. And I think more people are open and understand that they are their own brand and that at any point in time they could get laid off or they could get downsized or their position could be eliminated or whatever the circumstances are through no fault of their own. Absolutely. And it's not a reflection on their performance, right?
Absolutely.
And so getting people's mindset to think about their body of work in the world. There's a woman named Pamela Slim that wrote a book and that really changed my mindset. And this was probably about 10 years ago, that you are a brand and you do have a body of work and your paycheck may come from one organization, but that's not all you.
Absolutely.
That's them, right? And so are you creating your own assets out in the world, whether it be a book or a podcast or, whatever piece of art, whatever it may be. So I love that you have your Dreamers Library. So not just like a bunch of videos that you created around certain, like you kept hearing the same things over and over again and you wanted to educate people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, those are the my dreamers library is, pieces of conversations that I've had with my clients. And as you mentioned, just common themes that come up quite a bit. And so I thought, I would want to sort of create a library or a resource, that people can go to, that's accessible, these bite-sized sort of tips, advice, insight, into how to launch your own business or how to talk about your brand in a way that's confident, or networking, right? So these are the things that, no matter if you're pivoting in your career or you're crafting your personal brand, these are the conversations and that you have to have with yourself around, positioning yourself for success. So I created this library. It's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it looks phenomenal. It looks phenomenal.
Thank you.
So do you have group programs, or do you just work one-on-one with people, or how do you operate now?
Yeah, so I would say it's a hybrid right now. So I have several group programs that I'm doing, but those are more in-house. So I'm working with corporations to facilitate group programs under women's leadership and personal branding initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that. I do also individual private work with my clients as well, depending on what their needs are. We usually get in sort of a one-day, full-day immersion where we really just flesh out your brand, right? And really go through the multiple dimensions of it so that when you walk away, you feel like you have a roadmap of how to build your brand. Or if people who want a little bit more of the long road, right? We take on a more, a longer term engagement and work together for at least 6 months or so to help them sort of craft and build that brand in a more intentional, methodical way. So depending, again, like what your needs are, we could either do a short immersion program or over the long term.
Right, right. And I think, one of the things that I've talked to some of my other guests who are also coaches is that until the client is really ready to invest in themselves, I mean, that's what it really takes, right? Knowing that you're worthy and that you're worth the investment, and spending the money by working with a coach to do that transformation, right? Because the coach is going to really hold you accountable and help you get there faster than if you try to do it on your own. Right?
It's interesting. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it is an investment in yourself, and I think we've heard it put that way. When it comes to programs that are out there, I look at it as a personal trainer or a coach at the gym, right?
Right.
You can either do it on your own, and that's fine too. I never want to position myself as the key or the answer to all of your prayer. That's not, my job. I'm here to be your thought partner and your guide. But you can absolutely do it on your own. And, I'll just say as a separate side note, sometimes, it's a little bit frustrating that I see programs out there that are, sort of preying on people. And I was one of them, I'll be honest with you. Early in my career as an entrepreneur, I had invested so much money. Like, I don't even want to think about how much money I've spent over the years. And, in many of I won't say all of them, but in many of the instances, it was sort of a fear-based decision to buy this package because someone is selling from the stage and they say that I need this, and without this program or their training or their course, that my business is going to fail. And I know that sounds extreme and drastic, but these are the things that I would hear as a new entrepreneur. So I never want to be that person. I never want to make people feel like they have to, buy my program or buy my product, because if not, they're broken. This is not a fixed it model that I'm offering here. But, to your point, it is an investment, and whatever the dollar amount you spend working with me together, you're going to get that plus more, so that I really just want to focus on the value and not the dollar amount. Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally does. It totally does.
Yeah.
So, what's the most fun thing about your job right now?
Wow. Yeah, that's a great question. So part of my my work, a big part of my work, is walking my own talk. To be honest, I never give any insight or advice of things that I have not done myself or that I cannot personally recommend. That said, part of building your brand is broadening your impact and your reach, doing more speaking, right?
Right.
So a lot of the times that requires getting outside of your comfort zone. And I know public speaking is a huge, challenge for a lot of us, myself included. It's not something that comes natural to me, but the fun thing that I'm doing right now is just that, doing public speaking. So I got the good fortune to go to San Francisco to a Women in Tech event not too long ago, which was amazing and phenomenal. And it was something that my career, and the opportunity came to me this year, and I was able to fly out and give a talk to a room full of wonderful women. So as much as we tend to fear taking big leaps within our careers, most times it's the very thing that we need to do, so running towards the fear. So your question was, what's the funnest thing that you're doing right now? And I'll say that it is fearful, but it's also very fun too, because I love talking about this. I love spreading this message and being able to connect with women in the front of a room. So that's really lighting me up today. Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great. Now, do you also help your clients create signature talks?
Yes, I do. Yes. So we do go through a process of, sort of going through their story, right? Because a lot of their signature talks is going to come from their own personal story. It's a place that, they have lived experiences that they can really sort of leverage and bring sort of a unique perspective to the table. So sometimes this takes a little bit of time to kind of flesh it out and connect the dots and see what resonates as sort of a signature talk. But once we find it, once we sort of partner together to find what that is, it's something that you can lead with, and it's something that you can sell, when it comes to pitching yourself for public speaking engagements.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you have like a process after you've kind of done some work with them on their personal brand to then extract out their story and extract out their signature talk that then they can use to market and amplify who they are out in the world and the impact that they're having.
Right.
That's amazing. Exactly. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And then have you gotten to see some of them do their talk in public?
Yeah. So earlier this year, I worked with several women. So I worked with, she's so many things. She's a spiritual teacher, and we worked together to craft her signature talk. And so she got to present it at the assemblage, the co-working space here in the city, to a room full of people. And so it was really interesting, the process going through it with her, because she was a little nervous. She has like decades of experience doing this work, right? And so she's super powerful and confident, like she knows her stuff like the back of her hand, right? But she got nervous to do this talk because the audience was going to be a little bit different than she was used to. It was more of I wouldn't say the corporate crowd, but they were a little bit more on the business, sophisticated side, a little bit more buttoned up than what she was used to. So she was a little worried about coming off too woo-woo or, a little too fluffy, So we came up with a talk that sort of spoke to their business mind. And it was actually, I'm going to butcher the topic, but basically she came up with archetypes that we can apply in the workplace based on her spiritual teachings, right? And that was so much fun because everyone has, right? Like I'm sure archetype work, like everyone has their own unique archetype, right? And once you know what that is, that can be a game changer in business and in finance, right? So she was able to take that talk and sort of refine it in a way that it would land and resonate to her audience. So that was a lot of fun.
That is great. That was really, but you know what? She had the awareness that she's a spiritual teacher, which is not really what the buttoned up crowd is going to be used to.
Exactly.
And they're a little bit more judgmental. And so, but she was able to teach her spiritual lessons to them in a language that they would understand.
Exactly. And she didn't have to go far away from her authentic voice. This was all coming from the same place,
Right.
so that was really important to her. She didn't want to have to water her message down or make it something other than what it was, but she just changed the language, but it's still coming from that same place. So that was a real win for her.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Oh, that's fun. I love that. I love that. I love that. So, do you also offer like workshops and things like that as well?
So I do, one of my signature talks is actually
Mhm.
called The Essence of You, Personal Branding for Smart Women. So it talks a lot about what we've been sharing in terms of personal branding, but sort of it takes more of an inside out approach to building your brand, as opposed to looking at our titles and our resumes and, our LinkedIn profiles as sort of the sole, source of where we build our brand. So it sort of takes a more holistic approach. So that's a fun talk that I get to do. I also do a talk called Dream Plan Do,
Mm.
success strategies for women. And so it's a take on how to build your business and do it in a way that feels authentic to you, building the foundation of your business such that when you launch it, it's sustainable over the long term, right?
Mhm.
So it really sort of gives credence to this idea of dreaming. And you'll see all over in my branding, I use the word dream a lot. And that's I love it because it's sort of a forgotten thing that we don't often tie into business when it comes to that, like dreaming big. We don't really have those conversations in a business context, So I really want to make it okay and, not, so I don't want us to feel held back by using the words, tell me what your dreams are. I ask this of my clients all the time, no matter if they're corporations or if they're individuals, because we all have dreams. This is the one thing that connects us, right? So,
Mhm.
so I love that, each of our dreams are not the same, like your dreams, Tracy, are going to be different from mine. There might be some overlap there, but, I love that each dream can be distinctive to the person that's leading it, So
Mhm.
there's certain things that people want to do in the world. And I don't always share that dream, but that's because it's not for me,
Mhm.
So I think our dreams reach us in a very unique way, and it's up to us to listen to that. So these are the kinds of concepts that I introduce into that signature talk around dreaming and planning and doing. So it integrates the dream aspect, but it also makes it practical as well.
I love that. I love that. So I'm imagining that you've done a lot of personal growth and development work that has led you to
Whew,
land on that.
yeah, absolutely. This comes from a very deeply personal path for me. It's when I was going through sort of that life transition and rethinking and reevaluating how I wanted to show up in my life and in my work. I studied a variety of personal development modalities, anything from yoga to meditation, studying mindfulness, journaling. I've read so many books, spiritual books and leadership development books, personal development books. The Secret, right? That was really big a couple of years ago, and I gobbled it up. I was so thirsty. I was so thirsty to learn more beyond sort of the black and white of how we oftentimes view our careers and our lives, and I just wanted to know like different opinions and perspectives that were out there. So it definitely opened my mind in a way that was really just sort of refreshing, and I will say my work with photography was really sort of a gate opening or door opening to my creativity,
Mhm.
and expressing that in the world, and photography is, an artistic medium, but it also got me to look at the world in a very different way, to sort of understand my unique perspective. So, if you see an object, right? So say if you have, a vase, and the vase has a flower in it, right? And you ask 10 people with a camera to take a picture of this vase, you're going to get 10 different pictures of the same object, right? And
Right.
something about that to me was really just so fascinating, you know, that we can look at the same thing and see it completely different, you know? And it just really brought home the fact that there's only one you in the entire world. No one else has your story. No one else has your lived experience. Like, how beautiful is that, you know? And I think, you know, myself included, we take it for granted sometimes, you know, because life happens and we get sort of caught up. But yeah, it just sort of, you know, it's worth pausing to sort of check in with self and learn about ourselves, because we're always evolving, we're always experiencing new things. So yeah, it was just being open, you know, to learning something different, to being different, and being able to lead your life from that place.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. You know, for me, it's writing. But I can see photography is probably equally the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a bit of a writer too. Actually, shortly before our call today, I was doing a blog post, and through the you know, sort of learning and opening up to my creativity, I took to journaling, and that actually led me to start blogging and to start publishing my work publicly too. So I'm with you on writing. I think it's an amazing way to connect with the inner spirit. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now, do you have a favorite leadership book that you typically recommend to your clients, or that just like, or a particular leadership author that has really impacted you?
So many. I would say early on in my career, I came across Tara Moore's work, right?
Yeah.
She's the author of Playing Big. And I was one of the first groups to go through her Playing Big online program, which was phenomenal. So she definitely comes to mind. I really resonate with her work on leadership development. Brene Brown is also another personal favorite. Daring Greatly, she's the author of that book. And I've also taken courses she's offered online around vulnerability as well. And I would also say Mindset by Carol Dweck. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Carol Dweck. She's a PhD and talks about the two different mindsets in which we can go throughout our lives, the fixed and growth mindset. So it's a really fascinating read on how we can, perception and how we look at problems and through the fixed or growth mindset lens. So I would say those 3 books were really instrumental.
Yeah, there are so many good ones out there. And I haven't read Mindset, but I know who Carol Dweck is. I love Brene Brown. I think she's my spirit animal.
She's amazing.
And Tara Moore, Playing Big, was also, I thought, her writing resonated with me.
Yes. Same.
Yeah. So, this is just amazing. I'm so glad that I got introduced to you. This is just
Thank you. Thank you.
So my finale question is always, what's the bravest thing that you've ever done, and how does it inspire you today?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I'll say this. I often get the comment from other women entrepreneurs, or aspiring entrepreneurs, I should say, in general, that comment and say, "Oh, you were so brave to start, your own company and go off on your own and do this," And it was really, I understand the sentiment in which they gave that comment, but to me, starting my own company and sort of going, a different direction, that wasn't the bravest thing for me. I think that was just something that, I just couldn't not do, right? But I will say that sort of embedded in that was my willingness to follow my heart. Okay? And the heart and the mind will be at odds all the time, right? And, I think we're forever trying to get our hearts and our minds to line up and to play nice together. And, our heart is always calling us to do something most of the time crazy, and our mind is sort of, wanting to keep us safe, right? And I think, the bravest thing that we could all do is follow our hearts and trust it. And I know that sounds cliche to say it, but I think that if we were more loyal to our hearts than to our mind and the fears and playing it safe, that then we would be living so much more meaningful lives, open-hearted lives, and have so much joy and fulfillment in our lives, you know? So I think that that's the bravest thing any one of us can do, and one that that I am not perfect all the time, but it's always sort of my compass that I want to follow, both in business and in life, is to always follow my heart, because it's never steered me wrong. So yeah.
That's great.
Trust is a big thing. Trusting that it's going to be okay and it's going to work out.
Yeah. So my one friend says, leap and the net will appear.
Yeah. And sometimes not, you know,
Yeah.
I've fallen on my butt more than I care to count, Tracy. Like, it's just part of the process. And, you know, I think we need to embrace that. You know, that failure is a part of the process. Mistakes are a part of the process. It does not mean you're doing anything wrong. You know, a lot of times it means you're doing something right. You're pushing the barrier. You're pushing the envelope, right? I think where we sort of get it wrong is that we don't learn from the mistakes. We don't learn from the failures. We don't look at them, because sometimes they're wrapped in shame and embarrassment, right? You know, we did this horrible thing, right? But if we can learn to you know, just to reinvent our relationship to failure, you know, and embrace it as part of the process, we would go so much further, you know. So sometimes the net does appear and sometimes not. And either way, it's okay. It's all a part of it.
Right. It's what have you learned from it? I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really wise counsel. So I just so appreciate you coming on and talking to the audience about She Went for Her Dreams, your dream to go out there and really help other women, other smart women, share their stories, get their minds wrapped around their brand, feeling confident, letting their voices be heard, you know, giving them that coaching when they're at a crossroads. And really, I think you're doing a great service to these organizations that are bringing you in to help their female leaders, as well as the private work that you're doing. And so I just think it's so important to have people like you on this earth that are out there, and that women just need to know that you're out there, and that this is a thing that someone can help you with and hold space for you while you're going through whatever the transition may be.
Absolutely.
Because I think that, and I'm sure you see this from when you start working with people to when they sort of leave your nest, to say how much probably more clarity they have. Yeah. It's, you know, it's interesting. And thank you for saying that. I think it's, you know, my job at the end of the day is just to be a reflection, to show you what it is that I'm seeing, you know. And oftentimes when my clients come into the beginning of the work together, they leave a very different person. And it's only then that I know I've done my job, right? So you oftentimes come into it thinking like, okay, I have this certain goal and objective that I'm hiring Ariane to help me with. But by the end of it, you've gotten, you know, something completely different and so much more than you anticipated. So that's always a joy for me to see. So. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the gratification, and that's the satisfaction that, you know, you've done your job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I so appreciate you. So if people want to find you online, what's the best way for them to find you online?
Yeah, so you can usually find me at shewentforherdreams.com. That's usually the best place to find me and my work. There's blogs and articles being posted on the regular. You can sign up for my newsletter there as well. And I'm also on Instagram, so you can follow along my crazy antics on Instagram. I'm always posting something pretty regularly on there, whether it's work related or just having brunch at my favorite restaurant in my Brooklyn. But if you wanted to know that side of me, you're always welcome to find me there. So.
Okay, great. Why, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracym.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracym.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.